Great Fats Domino. He had a strategic alliance with the U.S. High Bush Blueberry Council, which studies things like what's the perfect day for Americans. Text from Ann B. Davis's Bowling Ball. The Ladies Auxiliary of the Black Caucus of the U.S. High Bush Blueberry Council also endorsed Roseanne Barr for president. I believe that is true. Which she ran the Peace and Freedom Party ultimately there in 2012. President Trump in Southern Illinois yesterday. Granite City Works, steel mill that's back online. And he was touting his America First economic policies and bringing up some out of work, now back to work, Furnace B employees like Patricia Bertrand to express their thanks.
In everything we do and every action we take, my administration is fighting for the loyal, hardworking citizens of our country. Men and women like you who make our country great, who make our country run. I'd like to invite some of the incredible workers here at Granite City up on stage to personally share their stories really fast. Patricia Bertrand has worked here for 18 years. When Furnace B restarted last month, Patricia christened it with a bottle of champagne. In other words, she loves this place, I think. Is that right? I do. Good.
Just like Ted Knight christened the Flying Wasp.
Thank you.
It's Furnace B.
Breaking the champagne bottle on the B furnace last month restart celebration was a very special honor. I was impacted 2 years ago when the plant was idled. Prior to that, I had worked at Granite City Works for 16 years and was able to provide a comfortable life for me and my family. Granite City Works is home to me, and driving past the quiet plant was difficult. Many families, including my own, suffered in local businesses. It is great to see the plant up and running, everyone back to work, and the community thriving. Thank you, Mr. President.
And then Trump said it's easy to grin when your ships come in and you've got the stock market beat, but the man who's worthwhile is the man who can smile when his shorts are too tight in the seat. And then he said, okay, Pookie, Chris. And then she said, I christened the Furnace B. That's how that went.
Wow, did you just make that up?
No, that's Ted Knight's christening the Flying Wasp and Judge Schmales and Caddyshack. Come on.
Okay.
Have you not seen Caddyshack yet?
I've seen Caddyshack. Baby Ruth.
All right, for more on this topic, the substance of it, not the hijinks, we're pleased to be joined by CNBC contributor, local raconteur and restaurateur, Jim Iuorio. Jim, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get to macroeconomics, I want to talk a little microeconomics with you as a restaurateur, owner of Brant's and Palatine. I understand the best burger in Chicago.
Okay, well, come out, and then you won't have to just say, I understand them. You'll have proof.
Where's
Come out, the burger's on me. And I never normally say those words.
Can I come too?
Of course.
Amy.
I've got really nice
You got
skin.
to memorize Caddyshack first. What kind of person doesn't know all the lines of Caddyshack?
Exactly, that's right. I'm too much of a sophisticate to hang out in the suburbs. I'm sorry.
Understood.
So here's the thing, though. I want to just kind of give you a heads up because I'm sure this is coming to Illinois now that it's being popularized in California. Santa Barbara is imprisoning people who violate its plastic straw prohibition. So I just wanted to check on the straws over there at Brant's and make sure they're made of bamboo or some other acceptable.
They're made of bamboo, and they're Twizzlers that are just cut on each end, some of them too. So we're fine in that regard. You know what? I mean, it is absurd. It's completely absurd, and I'm with you on that too. But there is a serious note of it. There is a lot of waste in the restaurant business, and I'm not going California on you right now.
Right.
But I like to see steps in the right direction. It's so funny how when the pendulum swings, it's something so stupid as making it a criminal offense to have plastic straws. That's just baffles me, as it does you, I'm sure.
I'm sure you've seen the video that's going viral of the turtle with the straw stuck in his nose. And
Of course.
I dive a lot.
He's a coke addict, that turtle.
When I'm 95, 100 feet down, I'm a deep sea diver. There's a lot of garbage down there, and it's ridiculous. I mean, don't take a straw if you're not going to use a straw. Learn how to drink without a straw.
Amen. Yeah, and I'm completely for that. There is a lot of waste in the restaurant business, like I said. I would love to see steps being taken to change that, for sure.
steps being taken in the market, not steps being taken at the heavy hand of government, I presume.
Of course.
Okay,
that's what I would always advocate for.
Well, speaking of the private sector, 4.1% GDP growth in Q2. People got to be happy about that, right? That's pretty good. We haven't been there in 4 years.
Wait, I thought they told us that was impossible now. Are you sure that's what happened?
The new normal was 2.2% GDP growth under Obama.
Yeah, and those jobs are never coming back. We were told. No, what we're seeing is truly amazing. I mean, we knew, actually, the funny thing about that 4.1 print is that we were all in the market. The whisper was like that it was going to be even higher than that. So to call a 4.1 just at the moment mildly disappointing seems funny. But we take two steps back from a broad perspective, what we've seen is nothing short of amazing. To pivot from a time where interest rates were at zero and the Fed believed they had to be at zero for extended periods of time, to now all of a sudden we're in an environment where interest rates have gone up considerably. The 2-year printed today are the highest level it's been in 10 years. And for interest rates to go up and still for us putting 4.1 GDP numbers on the board is nothing short of amazing. And I don't care who you want to give credit for. I know what I want to give credit for, but you have to admit that what's happening is pretty startling.
Who do you want to give credit for all this?
There's twofold credit. Okay. I think that Barack Obama twice ran on a platform of reining in corporate excess. That's not even just me saying it. That would be him saying it as well. Well, unfortunately, when you rein in corporate excess and overregulate and overtax, you're going to have an underperforming corporate sector. There's zero question of that. And that's why the Fed's response was, and they knew this, and they articulated at times, that they had to keep interest rates at zero almost all the time just to counterbalance an ineffective macro policy. So all of a sudden, I'd like to thank Barack Obama for leaving office, and then I'd like to thank Donald Trump. I think that he's less of a factor than a Barack Obama leaving, but his policies have been, and even if you hate tariffs, even if you think it's ridiculous that we have tariffs, the one thing that can't be argued is that he's definitely taking big swings in protection of the corporate sector. He's an advocate of the corporate sector. It might be misguided on the tariff portion of it, but it is significant to me that we have no questions as to who he's representing and who he's championing.
What are the impacts? I mean, both in terms of sort of substantive economic decisions as well as just in terms of economic outlook, and attitude is important in this discussion of this news posting over 4% this quarter.
Well, a lot of people are going to start to talk it down and say some of the GDP we've seen is business that was pulled forward in anticipation of tariffs.
Right.
I think they're incorrect. I think what we're seeing is a real live boom. That doesn't mean the stock market necessarily is going to continually follow along, because I just mentioned before interest rates and the overarching theme and the ghost that we're all scared of is higher rates. Spooking the market and not letting the actual stock market go higher. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that, like I said before, I think we're headed in a great direction.
Facebook yesterday folded like a deck of cards. I mean, they made history. Do you think that this is the beginning of the end for Facebook?
No, I don't. And if I would think that, to put it in perspective, in late March, early April of this month is when that Cambridge Analytica scandal hit. And Facebook traded down to 150 right then. I think if this was devastating to Facebook, these earnings and the guiding lower, I think we wouldn't have respected those lows, and we're still well above those lows. So I think this is mostly a function of it had come too far too fast. I mean, we all know that 6 or 7 names were doing the majority of the heavy lifting in the stock market's rally. What I think the biggest takeaway of Facebook's movement yesterday is that the company with the fifth biggest market cap in the U.S., one that we know was doing a huge amount of heavy lifting, breaks 20%, and the rest of the market kind of yawns. I know the NASDAQ went down a bit, but the broad market, as far as the S&P goes, didn't break. To me, that's a good sign of strength, because that would have been a nice reason to begin a correction in the stock market, and we ignored it.
This week, Morgan Stanley put out an estimate suggesting that oil prices could go up to $90 a barrel in 2020. And some other industry analysts are suggesting a multiple of that in fact, the demand for crude oil and thus the rising prices of the rising price of oil could induce a recession in the next 24 months. What do you think about those predictions?
I think below, as long as it seems to be in a nice upward sloping trend. And I think if it did go to 90 and it went there relatively quickly, I think that could be recession inducing, but I don't think that's what's going to happen at all. My next target is 75. And the fascinating thing about the oil market is that for us to be talking about supply being a concern and demand outstripping supply is something that's a relatively new dynamic in the price of oil over the last couple of years. So that's a very, very positive thing. And remember too, oil prices going higher is economically, we sell a lot of oil. We're a huge oil producing country.
Right.
So the price of oil taketh away from the consumer, but it also injects back into that sector too. So it's not a clean equation.
And sticking on the energy sector for a moment, after his meeting with EU bosses this week, Trump made some very specific points about their discussion and about American products. Soybeans, because the soybean farmers want access to the Chinese market, as well as Europe, obviously. But then also natural gas and the point about us being able to export natural gas, both in terms of the economic benefit for the U.S. as well as the security benefit after the other week criticizing Merkel for doing a deal with the Russians.
And it's an interesting phenomenon. We export a lot of LNG, and we're a huge producer of it, and that's all. I hate to give compliments of things that have happened over the last 10 years, but despite the fact that permits were being withheld, we still managed to become a huge producer, and it's a huge thing. And a lot of people who are in the know are telling me that Europe was going to buy the natural gas anyway, and it wasn't that huge a deal. But the takeaway from this whole thing, let's just say he walked away from the EU meeting, he dropped the tariffs, he said, but I know that this hasn't happened yet, and they dropped back to where they were before. Even if everything was the status quo before this whole thing started, the takeaway is still that we are not going to just sit back and watch other companies tariff us into low-growth sort of environments. And I think that that's an extremely positive thing.
He is Jim Iuorio, CNBC contributor and the owner of Brant's in Palatine, the best burger in Chicago. I'm going to stipulate to that, even though I haven't had one yet. All right, Jim, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
And he joined us on our turnkey, .pro answer line.
This is the morning.